Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Retire Well, brought to you by the team of Citizen Advisory Group. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and joining me in the studio is the owner, Kevin Bucher, and financial advisor, Pete Samanuk. We're so glad you're joining us today. We are going to be going through some of the most common questions that the team of Citizen Advisory Group gets regarding Social Security from folks who have called in from the TV show, come in and sat down and met with one of the advisors. We know that there's a lot of confusion out there, and yet Social Security is a critical piece of your retirement planning puzzle. We want to make sure we get these most burning questions answered. Kevin, Pete, always good to be here with both of you. We're excited for a good show, aren't we?
Yes, thank you. Yep,
Great to be here today. Yep, we're excited again.
Awesome. Well, before we dive into these common questions, I do want to set up for our viewers to understand how important this is, that we're having this conversation, and most importantly, that you walk through Social Security in detail with your clients. There's a lot of financial planning firms out there that don't even have this conversation, that don't engage in Social Security planning. In fact, a lot of times they'll just tell you, just go down to the Social Security Administration, or we don't do that here, right? But you guys do. I would love for you to share, first of all, why you do it and how you do it differently.
Yeah, and I was just thinking this as we were introducing the show and you were talking. I'm like, man, people are going to have Social Security burnout. I'm like, we're doing another Social Security show, but the reality is it's that important to us. It's that important to you as a retiree and a consumer and an individual is what you're going to do with your Social Security. And that's the shows that we typically get the most interest and response from is Social Security, because people have a lot of questions around it. There are a lot of misconceptions, and it's just the cornerstone of your retirement in the United States retirement system. So we have to unpack it, we have to understand it, we have to make sure we do it right, because typically we only get one chance to do that. And I do think that's a big differentiator for what we do at Citizen Advisory Group.
For sure. And explain what it is that you all do specifically regarding Social Security as part of someone's overall financial plan.
Yeah, so Social Security, as Pete mentioned, is going to be one of those cornerstone pieces to most retirees' finances. Certainly not everyone gets a Social Security benefit, but for most people, it's a really significant piece. And too often times it's neglected in the financial planning process. So really the timing of when and how you take your benefits. So it's not just about how old are you when you elect to take your benefits. It's about understanding the relationship between your retirement benefit, your spousal benefit, and potentially a survivor benefit. And then ultimately, when is the right time for you to take those benefits? So too often we find it's not given much consideration. You work, and then when you're ready to retire, you pull the plug and retire, and you file for Social Security. And certainly that is one of the major considerations as you exit the workforce. But those two things are not necessarily things you have to do at the same time, right? So the right time to take Social Security may be at your retirement date, but it might not be at your retirement date. So that's what we're really helping flush out, is understanding what are the different types of benefits you might be eligible for, and then how do you get the best from your Social Security benefits.
For you and your situation, right?
Yes.
And that's why
Very
so
custom.
often the answer to these questions is it depends, because it will depend on your personal situation. But again, today we want to tackle some of the most common questions that we know that you have regarding Social Security. And the chances are the folks who come in and ask them, they have those questions, you have them as well. They're very common. So let's go through the first one. This is about the fundamentals, and you touched on this, Kevin, so this is a perfect segue. Who is eligible for Social Security retirement benefits, and how are those benefit amounts calculated?
All right, so I won't bore you with getting into as much of the details. If you like to know the details, we have done other shows on this topic where we have gotten into some of the nuts and bolts, and you can find that on our YouTube page at Retire Well TV. But generally speaking, you have to have 40 credits or 40 quarters of coverage to be eligible for the Social Security retirement benefit. And most people are familiar with the retirement benefit because, you know, we get those statements mailed out to us. It tells us what our earnings history was and what our projected benefits. That's 100% has to do with your retirement benefit. So you have to have 40 quarters of coverage. It takes about 10 years to get 40 quarters.
Right, because there's 4 quarters a year essentially.
Yes.
So if
You can't get more than 4.
10 years, right? Yeah,
So, and so it takes about $7,000 of earnings this year to get all 4 of your quarters. But you get your 40 credits, you're going to get your retirement benefit, and then they base that off of your highest 35 years of indexed earnings. So they pull whole 35-year wage history, they break that down into your average month to determine what you're actually going to get from Social Security.
Yep.
And I think it's important, just quickly, to, as you're saying that, I'm thinking a question I get a lot is, we always say 4 quarters, right? You can earn 4 quarters in a year. That doesn't mean you necessarily had to work all 4 quarters, right? You could earn, like Kevin said, you can earn all 4 credits by earning up to about $7,000 in a year. You could literally earn $7,000 in a week, and you have all 4 credits. You could work 1 week out of the year, earn $7,000, not work the rest of the year. I'm not suggesting we do that,
right?
But we have all of our credits earned for the rest of the year. So that's a common question I get too.
For sure. And I think another thing it's important to point out while we're talking about it, because the calculation is based on your 35 highest earning years, we know that a lot of folks spend time out of the workforce. And maybe that applies to you. I think of my own work history and all the years that I was in business for myself as well. Those were big fat zeros because I wasn't paying into the Social Security system. So, you know, there's lots of nuances, and that's why it's important too for folks to go to ssa.gov. Again, that's ssa.gov, and it's free to set up your account, and you can actually receive those statements online, which we used to get in the mail, right?
Yeah, I mean, 35 years is a pretty big set of sampling that they're looking at, right? So
yeah.
It isn't that uncommon that people do have zeros in the system.
Yep.
And, you know, as a former teacher, you know, I used to grade a lot when papers, and then at the end of the quarter, you know, you tally up and determine your average. Well, zeros had a big impact on the average, just like it does when it comes to your Social Security benefit.
Right, yeah.
So zeros are something that people are maybe going to have, but we want to try to reduce the number of zeros you have to increase the average.
For sure. Really quickly too, while we're on the fundamentals, talk about how the earnings are then indexed for inflation.
Yeah, that's a big deal, right? Because if you just look at your raw earnings for the 35 years, it might look a little different than what Social Security is actually going to use, because they're going to index all of your past earnings, put them into terms of today's wage rate. So they're going to adjust for inflation. That's a very positive thing because it actually pushes your average up higher.
Right.
So when you look at your earnings history, you can't necessarily identify what those highest 35 years are because of the fact that they're going to adjust them.
Yep. Okay. Well, next up on our list of common questions, and this is a key one, and we're going to keep it high level here, but what's the difference between taking my benefits at age 62 versus waiting until my full retirement age, which for most folks is now 67, or even age 70?
Yeah, so again, just keeping it very basic and high level, is most people wouldn't understand you can take Social Security anywhere from 62, so you actually have to be 62 in 1 month, all the way until 70. And I think people think that if you don't take that benefit at 62, now we have to wait until 63, and then maybe we decide to take that benefit, or 65, and that's a common misconception we get in a question a lot. We can take that benefit month by month, right? If I don't take it at 62 in 1 month, I can take it at 62 in 3 months, or 62 in 4 months, or anywhere in between.
Yep.
So you can take it as early as 62, as late as 70, and anywhere in between there. But taking it at 62, you know, the statistics would say about 27% of people take their benefit at 62. You're taking up to a 30% permanent reduction in what your future benefit's going to be. So you're taking a permanent reduction in what you're going to get from Social Security for the rest of your life.
Yeah, you're locked in at that lower
Correct,
amount.
and potentially the rest of your spouse's life as well. So, you know, again, 27% of that, I was shocked to see that number, but 27% of people taking their benefit as early as 62 just typically is not the right decision.
Well, and for some people they may need to, right? It could be, right?
It's just different for everybody.
But I think it's really sad when folks unknowingly, they're like, yay, I'm 62, let me go ahead and turn it on, and don't realize that they're actually locking themselves in at the lower amount. Okay, so a possible 30% reduction at age 62. What then happens at full retirement age?
So at your full retirement age, you would be able to collect your full benefit based on the formula.
Right, 100% of what you're entitled to. Yeah.
But if you wait beyond that, and like Pete said, that's going to be anywhere between 67 and 70. You're eligible for what's called delayed retirement credits. So the credit is 8% per year. It's a guaranteed 8%. So, you know, when you're looking at guaranteed rates, I think an 8% guarantee sounds pretty darn attractive.
For sure, yeah.
So for some people, it does make sense to delay those benefits until the higher age.
Right.
But in reality, the decision as to when you're going to take your benefit, that is the $1 million question.
Yes.
Right? And because of inflation, I think we should probably call it the $1 billion question.
Right. Yeah.
So big decision, and it doesn't necessarily, again, have to coincide with, just because you're retiring doesn't mean that's the time to take your Social Security, especially when you're in a marital situation, because you really want to coordinate those benefits together with a spouse to make sure that you're doing the best thing that you can do for yourselves while you're both living, but that you're also setting up your survivor income in the most efficient way to protect a surviving spouse as well. And we're absolutely going to get to those questions because we get a lot of questions about that as well.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I know we've got a lot more questions to get to, but you have a very special offer for our TV viewers that will help them with Social Security when they come in to meet with you. Why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, so for callers from today's show, we're offering this Social Security guide. It's going to dive into some information to be able to go a little deeper than what we can do on today's show and give an explanation about the retirement benefits, the spousal benefits, and the survivor benefits that we are going to talk about. And it's really just going to inform you about some of the different nuances of Social Security, with the whole point of this guide and why we do this on the show, so that you are informed and you can make very informed decision about this very important benefit. So we're offering this guide on a complimentary basis for callers from today's show that call in and schedule their consultation.
And that consultation is completely complimentary, right?
Yes, we like to call that free.
Yes, exactly, right. So if you would like some help, we know you have questions regarding your own financial situation, and maybe it's specific questions about how you should go about claiming your Social Security benefits. We encourage you to reach out for no cost, no charge, no obligation. It's simply an invitation to have a conversation to see how the team of Citizen Advisory Group can help and serve you. That number to call is 866-630-1675. Or if you'd rather connect online, you can simply scan that QR code that you see there down in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, and that will get you connected as well. And as Kevin mentioned, when you come in and meet with the team, you're also going to be able to receive this wonderful complimentary Social Security guide. Stay with us. We've got a lot more common questions regarding Social Security, and we're going to answer those for you right after this.
As a youth, I spent my summer months on the construction sites with my family. I think I learned early on the value of hard work. Ultimately, though, I was led into the financial services world where I joined my brother Jeff.
You know, I think many people think that the financial piece is just so prevalent and the most important component, but there's just more to it than that. It's about the experiences, it's about the relationships, it's about the life that our clients are living.
They've got things set up so that the biggest decisions I have to make are whether to use a 9-iron or a pitching wedge, and what is my cocktail this evening.
It's our family coming together with your family. It's your financial pieces coming together to have a coordinated plan. It's our community coming together to keep that social connection.
I like the family atmosphere that they have. I think they treat everybody like they're part of the family of Citizen Advisory Group. I just love that they take care of us.
I think we pride ourselves on the comprehensive services that we offer, which starts with the holistic financial planning. That retirement checkpoint view is going to be a full review across the areas of investments, your income, taxes, insurance, and your legacy and estate plan to make sure that you have a coordinated plan and it is tailored to you, the individual.
We build all of this together to get the most out of your retirement so that you can have the retirement that you've always dreamt of.
Welcome back to Retire Well. I'm Kristen Oakley here with both Kevin and Pete from Citizen Advisory Group. And today we are tackling the most common questions that the team receives regarding Social Security benefits from folks who have called into this television show and then come in and had a complimentary meeting with one of their advisors. So we're going to continue working our way through this list of common questions. We are sure that some of you watching have these exact same questions. And gosh, we could spend hours talking about Social Security. There's so much to know, right?
That's why we do so many shows on it, I feel like, right? We have spent hours talking about it.
Yes, and it's such an important piece of someone's overall financial plan.
And it is where we get a tremendous amount of questions. So, you know, that's why we wanted to keep doing these shows to address as many of these questions as we could.
For sure. All right, well, next question here on our list. A lot of people have confusion and questions surrounding spousal benefits. So can you explain how those work?
Yeah, so this is definitely, to me, the area that I get the most confusion is surrounding what an actual spousal benefit is. Okay, so if you're married, right? You have a spouse. Okay, so we have a primary earner with their benefit, while the spouse is actually eligible to receive either the higher of their own benefit, okay, or 50% of the primary earner's benefit at their full retirement age. And
So
that's
whichever
a lot.
one's higher is
Correct.
the one they should
Whichever
choose,
two
right?
is higher,
Yep.
well, you're not even going to choose actually, right? So there's a lot of different strategies around this, but you're going to get the higher of the two automatically. So if I look at, again, maybe the wife, well, I'll just say maybe the husband spent a lot of time out of the workforce taking care of the children and whatever it might be, and the wife was the primary earner, and she has a benefit of $3,000 a month, and then they're looking at husband's benefit, and it says he gets $600 a month. Well, actually, no, he gets $1,500 a month because that's half of the higher earner's benefit at that time. And there's a lot of different ways and strategies and things that we can do, especially with, we did a recent show on the Social Security Fairness Act. A lot of different benefits and things that we can do and ways to kind of make sure that you're maximizing your benefit.
Right. But the key for folks to understand is they can't double dip.
Correct. You're not getting both of those benefits, right? You're not getting both of them.
Yep.
You're getting one or the other. But where you can double dip actually is if that scenario I talked about, someone has that lower benefit, you can take your own benefit and then your spouse is delaying because they have a higher benefit, you're going to get a step up when your spouse actually files, right? So you can kind of double dip. It's not quite as easy as I was making it sound, but there is a little bit of double dipping in there, for lack of a better term.
And maybe double dipping is not quite the right word for that, but it's strategy.
It's
to
strategy to
really
maximize.
and maximize what you're entitled to, right?
Because it really is a timing issue,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Because I'm not actually eligible to draw that spousal benefit until my spouse has triggered it by filing for their retirement benefit.
Right.
So there might be an instance where, I start my retirement benefit, which was lower than what my spousal rights will be. And to Pete's point, when now my spouse does file for their retirement benefit, I'm going to get that step up to include the spousal benefits on top of what I was getting on my own.
Yeah, and just a quick story, I'm kind of going off the cuff here and this popped in my mind, but I had some prospects I met with a couple of times over the past month, and I ran like 10 different scenarios for their Social Security, and every single scenario, no matter how I ran it with life expectancies, said she should file now. She needs to file for her benefit now. And I couldn't figure it out, and I kept running it to 100. And what if she dies at 80 and he lives to all these different things? Every single scenario said she should file now, and that's because of the spousal benefit that she was receiving when he filed. So she was always getting that step up. It was like she was missing free money.
Yeah.
I'll put it that way. She was missing free money that she just wasn't going to get because she was getting that spousal benefit when he applied no matter what.
Well, and again, this is why there's no one size fits all to this, right?
Yeah, so what he's explaining is that 8% delayed retirement credit that the spouse would have earned by waiting would have still never got that person above what the spousal was. So it made no sense to delay and not collect because the 8% credit wasn't going to get them to where the spousal was automatically going to get them.
Yeah, and I still don't think this individual did it. And I was just like, it's almost like I was like, I was like fighting with him on it, thinking like we have to do this because this is the stuff that we get excited and kind of geeked out over.
Yeah, for sure. So. You're trying to get them more money, right?
I know,
They're entitled to. That's a good thing. All right, well, moving along with spousal benefits, I know this is a common question and a source of concern for folks. What happens to Social Security benefits after one of the spouses passes away?
Yeah, so another big area that we get questions on. And honestly, I think it's one of the most neglected areas of the financial planning process that we see is people are not looking at what is the impact when the first of the couple passes away, what we call the survivor income. So there's a lot of considerations we have to look at, with Social Security planning being one of them. So what happens when one individual passes in the household? Well, the lower Social Security benefit is going to end. So you no longer collect the lower benefit in the household, but the survivor does get the benefit of getting that higher amount. And because of that, whoever the primary earner is that has the higher benefit, their benefit is so important because it lasts longer than the lower earning spouse's benefit, and it's the only one that's going to exist when the first of them passes. So there has to be a lot of emphasis put on that because the surviving spouse is going to assume the higher benefit and get 100% of that higher benefit. So we want that benefit to be as big as possible.
Yeah, and those survivorship rules, that typically that's a big play into what strategy we're going to do because of the misconception around the survivorship. That's why it's so important.
Yeah, you definitely, especially for married couples, they have to look at this planning in conjunction with each other. You can't look at any one of these decisions in a silo because it could impact other areas of your life. And so again, we are encouraging you to reach out. We know that Social Security can be complex and to be confusing. Although this might be new to you, the good news is it's not new to the team of Citizen Advisory Group, and they would love to be able to help and serve you. So for no cost, no charge, no obligation, we invite you to pick up the phone, call the number on the bottom of your screen, and schedule your complimentary consultation. 866-630-1675, or you can scan that QR code to get connected. And when you come in for that appointment, you're also going to receive a complimentary Social Security guide. It will go into a lot more depth, and I know that there's such value in here for you to help you get your own questions answered. So we encourage you to reach out. Now, stay with us. When we come back, I'm going to be asking Kevin and Pete, what if you're still working? How does that impact your Social Security benefit? And what are the tax implications you need to be aware of as well? Stay with us.
Do you own an annuity? Are you aware of what type of annuity you own? For years, annuities have been considered a cornerstone of retirement planning, but they're not all created equal. And your current annuity might not be serving your retirement goals. The good news is rising interest rates could mean better guarantees and better benefits for your annuity. If your annuity is not working for you, would you like to know sooner than later? Call now for your complimentary annuity review.
Imagine not having to face your retirement with the same old corporate solutions as everyone else. In these economic times, you deserve a fresh perspective that includes a personalized retirement income plan, investment portfolio analysis, and tax map from an independent fiduciary advisor whose focus is on you. Call the number you see here to schedule your complimentary review.
As individuals, we strive for better. From a better house, to a better career, to a better life for our kids. But when it comes to your retirement, what does better mean to you? More income? A flexible lifestyle? Better solutions? A better retirement begins with a plan. To get your complimentary written financial plan, call the number you see here. You only retire once. This is your opportunity to plan for better.
Welcome back to Retire Well. I'm Kristen Oakley here with both Kevin and Pete from Citizen Advisory Group, and we are working our way through a list of some of the most common questions that viewers have asked regarding Social Security. Before we dive into the next question, I do want to go back to what you were saying about survivor benefits, and I know that there are some unique characteristics that you wanted to make sure that you shared with our viewers as well.
Yes, thank you. I think it's just important to kind of touch on this because, you know, the loss of a spouse, unfortunately, could happen at any time, right? And so the Social Security benefits are kind of structured in a way to help protect a surviving spouse, whether they're in their 70s or if something unexpected happened in your 30s. In particular, if you have minor children that you're caring for, right? So I think when we think of survivor benefits in general, we're talking about as soon as you're age 60, if you're a widow or a widower, you're eligible for the survivor benefit. But that's if you were widowed at that point, right? But if you were widowed at a young age, unfortunately, there is what's called a child in care benefit for a surviving spouse. So if you have minor children under the age of 16, you're actually eligible for a survivor benefit at that point. And additionally, the children are eligible for a survivor benefit off of a deceased parent as minors up until the age of 18. Okay. So this is not just something that comes into play for us when we're in our 60s and 70s. It could affect somebody at any point when there's a loss of spouse. And the reason I wanted to just kind of give a high level introduction to that is when that happens, the Social Security Administration office is not going to pick up the phone and call you and let you know that these benefits are available to you. Right. So you do have to understand and work with somebody that understands the nuances of these benefits and why we do the education we do around this topic and why we actually spend so much time in our training as advisors in understanding the Social Security benefits and rules.
Yeah, for sure. So important. I'm glad you brought that up. All right. Well, the other question I know you get a lot is, can I continue to work while I'm receiving my Social Security benefit? This is huge for people to understand the implications if they're in that situation.
Yeah. And so going back to something Kevin said earlier in the show is that the decision to take Social Security does not have to coincide with your decision to stop working, right? You can continue to work and take Social Security. You can take Social Security and continue to work, or vice versa, however I said that. You can work and not take Social Security.
Right.
Or no, I'm sorry.
I think it's the same thing.
It is the same thing as what I'm saying.
It's all good.
The way
Well, what
I'm putting
happens
it.
if you are still working?
If you
and
are
you
still
take it?
working, though,
Yeah.
you are subject to the earnings limit in the earnings test. Okay, so you do have to stay below the earnings limit if you're below your full retirement age, and that's the important part to point out there, is below full retirement age. And for anyone born 1960 and later, your full retirement age is 67. So there's still some people that trickle in that we see are still 66 and 10 months, maybe 66 and 8 months. But if you're below the age of 67 or your full retirement age, as shown on your statement, you do have to be careful about what you're earning at work. And today in 2025, that earnings limit is $23,400. Okay, and they do look at that on a month-to-month basis. So if you file for Social Security at 65, you're accepting that permanent reduction, and then you're also making $40,000 a year at work. You're not going to get to keep all of that Social Security.
Right.
Right. So there's not a reason to kind of take that. You have to be very careful about when you're filing, if you're still working, how you're filing. I don't know if my jumbled mess at the beginning.
No, but the
it
point
made
is,
sense.
if you're still working, you have to know these things that you may not get
You can
everything
still
that you're
work and
entitled
take
to.
Social Security, but you
Right.
have to make sure that you're past full retirement age and understand
to
all
not
the
be
rules of
penalized,
playing
if
back.
you will.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
for sure. All right, well, I know we only have a minute and a half left, but we need to talk about the taxation of Social Security. That's another huge question that folks have.
Yeah, so we get questions all the time. What rate am I going to pay? What tax rate am I going to pay on my Social Security? And that's actually not the right way to phrase that question. The question is, what percentage of your Social Security is going to be taxed? Because the percentage that's going to be taxed is going to be taxed at whatever your tax rates are, right? So you might be in the 10% tax bracket, the 12%, the 22%, but not all of your Social Security is going to be taxable. So there's a non-taxable portion and a taxable portion. The key is, there, in no instance is more than 85% of your Social Security benefit taxed. So you're always going to get at least 15% tax-free. But if you can structure your income properly and be efficient with where you're getting your income in retirement, you can get much more than 85% of your Social Security tax-free.
Yeah, and that's the key to know.
I think I said that upside down too, but more tax-free
Yes.
is the way you want to go.
The way you
We're
want to
gonna
go,
get it
for
one
sure.
of these
Well, the point is, I think that the takeaway for our viewers, we know there's a lot of questions. There could be a lot of confusion regarding Social Security. And if you go down to the Social Security Administration, they can give you information, but they are not allowed to give you personalized advice. The only way you're going to be able to get that is by coming in and sitting down in the financial planning environment and getting your questions answered for you. Call that number on the bottom of the screen, and you're also going to receive that complimentary Social Security guide. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time here on Retire Well.